And sitting across from me are three gentlemen who, in 2008, sold 46 tickets for their first Dublin concert. And 1 year later, they had filled the Aviva in Lansdowne Road. And their new single is currently #1 on iTunes. It's the lead track of Hall of Fame. And it's just an amazing story. And I'm joined in studio by Danny O'Donoghue, Mark Sheehan and Glenn Power, and you're all very, very welcome indeed.
It's an
Thank you
absolute
very
pleasure.
much. Yeah, absolute pleasure.
And congratulations, it's some story.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's definitely been a kind of a rags to, well, better looking rags.
Rags to rags.
Rags to rags.
You two originally met through Buy and Sell.
Kind of. The stories kind of got out there. I originally was introduced to Mark through a friend of a friend, and we'd kind of been hanging around, but I found out he was actually selling music equipment.
Yeah.
And I was looking around to buying a 4-track. I'd gotten in a lot of trouble as a kid, and my mum was trying to get me out of it, and music seemed to be the logical way. And she was like, right, look, here's some money, let's save up, do chores in the house, get some money together, and we'll buy you some music equipment.
Yeah.
And I found out that Mark was selling his music equipment, so I went down to his house. Kind of, he showed me his system that he had. I bought the system off him. We became great mates, and it just goes to show you the kind of wheeler dealer mentality of Mark. He still is today. Is that I was down in his house literally 3 weeks later with the same equipment I'd bought off him back in his own house, and we were recording songs. So yeah,
Nothing has changed.
Nothing has changed. Yeah, I'm still getting done out of it.
And you weren't involved at all at this stage?
No. I was, meanwhile, I was working in various cover bands in all around Dublin and Ireland, making a living, basically.
Yeah.
And somewhere along the way, I met Mark through some musical friends, and he invited me out to Los Angeles to just hang out, check out the place. I went there for about 2 weeks. And in those the first day, actually, I arrived, he brought me to a studio where Danny was sitting there jamming out, working on some material for himself. And he said, "Do you want to play some drums on this and see what happens?" And the rest is history. We went there, had a jam on these tracks, and Mark brought the music to some record company producers that he knew, and they were like, "How long are you guys a band?" And again, Mark, being street savvy, was like, "Oh, we're together about 6 months," and we weren't the band
At all. He's a chancer, that fella.
He's a chancer, he is.
You literally were not a band.
No, I'd
we're
come
not.
back to Dublin at that point, and they offered Mark a deal there and then for the band, which we were not a band. And he called me. I was in Dublin. I always remember the day I got the call, and he said, "Dude, you're not going to believe this. I played this demo to some people here, and they want to sign us." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Do you want to be in a band?" And I was like, "Let's give it a go." So it really is. It's amazing. That's the truth. That's the simple version.
Yeah.
That's how it happened.
The business of going to the States, I mean, clearly all of you are kind of crazy about music and obviously brilliant at what you do. But I was just thinking, I presume there are other people who are very talented and they don't get the chance. What was it? You blagged your way into Paul McGuinness's office. Is that correct?
Yeah, slightly. Paul showed some interest in us at around 15, 16 years old, and we were writing and producing music then. Myself and Danny were friends since we were quite young. So he just took notice of us. He was already doing a rock thing, and we were doing quite pop thing. We were kids just following the heart in that way. And I think he saw something in the songwriting at that time, and just felt that we were quite influenced by American music at the time, so it didn't really have a place here in Ireland at this particular era. And so he sent us off to America, and we lived there for 10 years of our lives.
And when you say he sent you off to America, I mean, was this in an ongoing relationship, or just saying,
Yeah,
"Look, why don't you go over?"
When we were being managed by him, we kind of opened the doors up to like, let's say, one person who you can go over and write with over in America.
Yeah.
So let's say we went over to America, the two of us, and we barely any money, literally heading over. We kind of opened up the first doors, but that's kind of the way they set you free, is kind of, okay, well, open the first door, the rest is up to you.
Yeah.
So we went over. We made a lot of.
You went to Florida.
Yeah, we went to.
Why Florida? That struck me as odd.
But we had
First place we got a gig.
Yeah, it was the first piece of work that really came in for us, was to produce an artist there. And then when we went there, we just more and more artists were coming to us, and we just slowly kept us
to do what for them?
We write and produce music for everybody. That's what we were doing. We called ourselves musical barman. You'd come in and tell us what type of music you wanted, and we would try our best to make that type of music. And it could be rock, pop, hip hop, across all the genres. And we got particularly good at that. It was out of necessity because we'd no money and it was just the two of us, so
Right.
we had to do everything.
We'll literally do
ourselves.
anything you want. Jack of all trades, literally. you
Which
know.
is probably a great kind of
It was the
education.
It was.
It's
the
in the deep
education
end,
that I would have loved to pay for it. I would have. It was the dream education as far as writing music and producing music. We're just vicariously soaking it up 24 hours a day, you know. And that's why I think now we can't stop writing some.
So
so much
I
music.
gather. And which artists were you working with then?
We-
Back then, I mean, there were very low-level artists, you know,
Yeah.
ones that we thought were going to go on to bigger things. But,
Right.
you know, in retrospect, they were just, you know, the small fish in a massive, massive pond.
Okay, and what age
Lo-
were you
local.
guys around then?
18, 19, yeah, around then. Yeah, it was really, really young, you know. My ma was like, you know, basically entrusted Mark. She was like, now listen, you look after him. He's a young fella now. Make sure he's
Young
clean
chipper.
socks and jocks on. I'm only joking, but
So I just gave him my passport so he could have a drink over there.
Yeah.
I was such a responsible person.
But yeah, we, as I said, we travelled around for all those years, and we were literally just kind of hand to mouth for a lot of it. You know, as a musician, especially over in America, if you don't have an income or a wage, you're a liability to everything. So you can't get money for a car. You can't get, you know, we were literally sleeping on people's couches for ages, and
Right.
you know, literally, you'd get a gig maybe in January, and then you get nothing till March, or but most of the time we were kind of what's the word? We were kind of lying, basically, saying like I was going to say another BS, but we were BSing about what we could do at the time. You know, I was walking around. I had a Rolex that was a friend of mine's. It was a fake Rolex, and to top it all off, it was smashed and it didn't work.
Right.
You know, but I was still walking into a place like this. I had holes in my shoes. I had all these things, and you know, that was originally how we kind of got our foot in the door. And the thing about the script is, when you get your foot in the door, we will kick it wide open.
Right.
Kick it wide open.
Yeah.
Try and get in the room.
It's true, is it that you nicked ice from
Yeah.
I was
That's a story.
it was actually
find out about
myself. My all we had was the electricity at the house. There was all that was left. We couldn't pay any more of the bills, and we were trying to keep everything together. And the electricity just got cut on us, so we couldn't
we've
even
no
have a cup
studio
of tea.
either, you know?
And that meant we couldn't make music, which was to us was the worst thing.
Tea is the fuel for us.
Tea and no.
I've
no
seen other
electricity.
things as well, mind you.
Yeah.
yeah.
So it was just a case of we needed to keep the milk cold, you know, so we could have a cup of tea and make music.
So you nicked the ice in the supermarket?
Yeah,
was
well,
it?
over there they outside the gas stations they sell all the ice outside and they put
Yeah.
it outside in containers. So we
And
just
you
walked.
put it in the bath?
Yeah, we took it and just daily would bring it down, put it in the bath. So
Put in the
milk-
bath, put all the frozen food out with a fridge into the bath,
Into
so we
the
keep
bath.
it on for a few more weeks, you know.
That's the only way we could do it for a long time.
No, I'm not condoning this, by the way, and you know, friends of mine listening now. I'm
It's
not
not
saying
good. Don't
Yeah.
do it.
Right.
It wasn't a good time.
But then, was it you did some work with Justin Timberlake?
We did a remix for Justin. A lot of people that Justin worked with, his management company at the time, were managing NSYNC and Britney Spears and all those people. So it was actually that company, Johnny Wright, who was showing a particular interest in us at the time. That's why we were getting quite a bit of work there. Subsequently, then we moved to LA. We just up and drove across the country to Los Angeles with all our stuff in the back of a van,
Right.
and just started to try give it a go in Los Angeles, and that's kind of, it was about 2-3 years into the Los Angeles trip when Glenn came over in 2005, and that's when it
And
all
were
clicks.
you playing in public at that stage as well?
We were more producing than writing, but doing the
Right.
odd shows, yeah, just just playing the odd acoustic thing here or there, but it was more trying our best to write with artists, and again getting all C-class artists and things like that, and occasionally getting a little break in with a producer or a writer.
I guess a lot of failures, you know, along the way, but you don't realise that those failures are your stepping stones, you know, onto better things. And I think the amount of songs, we have a back catalogue of over 400 songs, you know, and that's nothing, and nobody's ever heard those. These are like, besides the other 35 that there are for the script, there's a massive back catalogue. Now, none of them are good, but you can hear the first one. It gets better and better
As
and
it
better
were
and better.
building
Yeah,
blocks.
you can see exactly.
You can
see
see
it,
where
you know.
we clicked at one point.
Yeah, you can see where it kind of all made sense. You
Oh,
know,
yeah,
all the
so
hours.
you went, so-
So the two of you were soldiering together, and then along comes number 3. And do you all write together as well?
Yeah, we all kind of, can cap in any different type of a way. You know, I guess myself and Mark would have the long-term writing partnership. But, you know, literally from the second Glenn came in, he was throwing guitar licks over what we were doing. And, you know, as just, Glenn keeps saying, it is like the missing piece.
Yeah, it was
You
like
know.
a jigsaw puzzle you've been trying to make your whole life, and then suddenly you walk into a room and there's two other guys with other attributes that you might be lacking, or that you might have something they may be lacking, or whatever. It just clicked, and we all kind of knew our place almost like in a psychic kind of way. You walk in, it's just click. and
This
you're
is
like,
it.
Wow.
You're
this-
looking for a melody. He's
Here's-
already on the guitar. You're
Here's a
looking for
band
beat,
I've
he's
wanted to be
already
in
on the
all my
drums,
life,
you know?
and these guys are cool. Well, almost cool. But you know what I'm saying?
We're getting there.
we're working on it.
Yeah.
So you got signed up,
Yeah.
and it was a Justin Timberlake one. That was the breakthrough, was it?
No, it wasn't. When we got to Los Angeles, we had made these demos, and originally we were just making solo music for Danny to try help Danny get out there as a solo act. And he'd had a manager who had failed him a number of times, and I started to take over the management of helping Danny. Even though I was his best mate, I was also managing getting him a record deal. So I took it to a label, and we were just chatting to the guys in the label, and they loved it, and they just said, you know, who's the band? And I kind of went, I was